song of Christmas cheer. Everyone rejoice forever. Sing with joy for all to hear. Raise a mighty loud jubilation. Now let your voices ring. Let the people in all creation rejoice and with us sing. Celebrate this day together. Raise a song of Christmas cheer. Everyone rejoice forever. Sing with joy for all to hear. Sing with joy for all to hear.
If you want to close your eyes and imagine John Wolfe, that's okay by me. Thinking about this sermon, I could not help but think again of Forrester's Church definition of religion. Religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. I have served this church now almost 30 years. That is a long time. That is a long time to share that kind of reality with so many. When they ask me how long I have been here and I say almost 30 years, people frequently remark, "My, that is a long time." A newswoman recently looked rather surprised and asked, "Why hasn't the bishop moved you?" A good question. During that time, I have christened 637 children, married 1,092 couples, read the funerals and memorial services for 498 men, women, and children. Another of my colleagues, Jack Mendelson, once asked, "Who is a Unitarian minister?" It is a person never completely satisfied or satisfiable, never completely adjusted or adjustable, who walks in two worlds, one of things as they are, the other of things as they ought to be, and loves them both. It is a person with a pincushion soul and an elastic heart, who sits with the happy and the sad in a chaotic pattern of laugh, cry, laugh, cry. And a person who knows deep down that the first time their laughter is false or their tears make-believe, their days as a real minister are over. What our ministry is about, and I say our ministry advisably because, after all, we do stand in the Protestant tradition, and that, according to Martin Luther, means the priesthood of all believers. The priesthood of all believers. What our ministry about is the sharing of two worlds, one of things as they are, the other as things as they ought to be, and loving them both. Every one of us is a person with a pincushion soul and an elastic heart who sits with the happy and the sad in a chaotic pattern of laugh, cry, laugh, cry. And my experience of us is that we try awfully hard to be genuine. We are idealists almost to the core, and we are easily moved. We are down-to-earth types who prefer the mountaintops. At the same time, we know we are not perfect, nor is life. We even have some grave questions about God. But then, that is why we are capable of perceiving the divine in the human and of catching glimpses of glory even in the worst of times and in people who have no apparent claim to glory. Being human, very human ourselves, is what keeps us genuine. It is also what protects us from being overly judgmental in those areas of life where religious people are notorious for being judgmental, even to a fault. Our pincushion souls and elastic hearts prompt us to say that we want our church to be a focus of acceptance, comfort, and forgiveness. Recently, I received another of what seems sometimes to be an endless stream of visits and telephone calls from people who are not even members of this church, but who have watched our television cablecast or heard my comments on a news program or talked to one of you about your beliefs. Or I must add, this is Barbara, or who watch us online or who have come to a weekly vigil at our local jail. Back to John. This was a young woman raised a Catholic who had an abortion. She, like many others of her faith, had been unalterably opposed to abortion. She considered it to be murder until her life came completely apart with an unwanted pregnancy. No use to tell you all that had happened to her. Suffice to say that rejected by the man who should have stood by her, distraught, she had come close to suicide. She had enough sense and enough will to save her life to get an abortion. But she needed to be comforted and to be forgiven for her decision, given what she had been taught and what turmoil there is about abortion in our society, and especially in her church. She went to her priest, a man she had known a long time, who she thought a friend. She told him what had happened to her and how troubled she had been to the point of suicide. And she told him what she had done. He, the priest, told her that she was no longer a member of the human race, that she was a murderer, that it would have been better if she had killed herself. Hearing this young woman's story, as I've heard so many others too much like it, I was moved not so much in anger at so callous a response by the priest, not so much in sympathy for her plight, the rejection, the fear, the utter distraction of her circumstances and all that she had been through, but by her courage. Against every conceivable obstacle, abandoned, alone, outcast, she had done what she knew she had to do. She fought for her own life against those who preached that she must sacrifice it for a mistake she had made. Never mind the man's complicity in it. Sometimes I wonder where such courage comes from. How can it be? I must say I was touched and a little awed in the face of it. My friends, do you know how radical a thing Christianity is? Have you any idea how radical the religion of Jesus was and is? Do you think for 1 minute that Jesus would have said to this young woman what her priest said to her? That this is Christianity? Impossible. Christianity, the religion of Jesus, is that impulse that rose in me, in which you might have felt welling up in you when you talked to this young woman, when you beheld her courage, something of the divine in the human. Christianity is entirely different from what most Christians think it is. The religion of Jesus is, in most cases, exactly the opposite of what most Christians think it is. That religion which preaches vengeance for those things we do in this life that miss the mark, that don't turn out the way we want them to, that turn out wrong, that aren't the way they ought to be, sometimes even through no fault of our own, but which happened to us because we loved or hoped or trusted too much. That religion which preaches vengeance for sin is not Christianity. Indeed, it is the very opposite. It is the contradiction of what Jesus taught, lived, and died for. As the great poet William Blake has said, Jesus was a radical, in just such a way as people who call themselves Christians would think we are radicals for seeing God for thinking of the divine when we behold the courage this young woman displayed in this, the greatest struggle of her life. People will have some religion, wrote William Blake, continuing. If they have not the religion of Jesus, they will have the religion of Satan and will erect the church of Satan, calling Satan God and destroying all who do not worship Satan in the name of God. The focus of a true church is acceptance, comfort, and forgiveness, not vengeance for sin. Deep within the understanding of a congregation of true ministers is sharing two worlds, one of things as they are, the other of things as they ought to be, and loving them both. It is the capacity to see the divine in the human. But how does this happen? How does it come about? To catch a glimpse of glory in the midst of the rough and tumble lives all of us live requires a change of heart and then of mind. We hear a great deal about conversion, about being born again, but few understand what that really means. Few understand, which is to say, few know in their hearts, thence have changed their minds, what being born again really means. Few understand what a religion of acceptance, comfort, and forgiveness is. Think of the things that have happened to you in your own life that have changed your heart and then your mind. Someone in a moment of reflection, a moment of sadness, observed that life steals one by one our reasons for living. The truth is that our reasons for living, the stuff of our made-up minds, the dogmas we have foisted upon us, and the ones we invent for ourselves, not the least of them being attached to people, places, and things, are all sufferable. Start out being as firmly and absolutely as it is possible to believe that something, like abortion, is wrong, dead wrong, and then all of a sudden, you're the one who has to have one. Start out believing that people ought to be responsible for themselves. Believe it as strongly and as dogmatically as you believe anything, and convince yourself that you will never have to do what other people seem to be doing all over the place, looking for a handout. And suddenly, you are out of a job and can't find one, and can't afford to take just any job and still feed your family. Or say that it is madness to spend one's time climbing mountains or jumping out of airplanes or watching birds until one day you try it and it isn't madness anymore, it's fun. You know, some people's reasons for living are summed up in all the reasons they can think of for not doing something or other. Spend all your life creating a safe nest for yourself, familiar friends, familiar places, only to discover in betrayal that you are treated better and with more consideration by strangers. Oh, the list is endless. Life does indeed steal one by one our reasons for living. But often as not, speaking of reasons for living, life makes no sense. Something that when it comes home to us, awakens our hearts and changes our minds. Not that we get much help or sympathy in the process. As often as not, the things that life teaches us are not the lessons we have been taught or the lessons, the religious lessons, so many insist that we need to learn. I will tell you what a church is. I don't care whether you call it Christian or not, and I'm sure Jesus wouldn't care either. A church is a place, is a community where in response to being alive and having to die, issues into compassion, gentleness, kindness, patience, long-suffering, forbearance, and love. St. Paul called these things the fruit of the Spirit. The church is a place where our own life struggles and pain are acknowledged, where they are turned into understanding and strength for others who suffer no less than we do. A church is not a place of doctrine. It is a place of love. If it ever does turn judgmental, it is in judgment against those who manipulate and curse, who seek to control and condemn rather than accept, comfort, and forgive. It is against those who do not see the glory in the lives of those who are not perfect, but only human. One of the great parables in the gospel accounts of Jesus' ministry is the parable of the Great Supper. Let me read it to you. A certain man was giving a big dinner party and had sent out many invitations. At dinner time, he sent his servant with a message for his guests. "Please come, everything is now ready." They began, one and all, to excuse themselves. The first said, "I have bought a piece of land and I must go and look over it. Please accept my apologies." The second said, "I have bought 5 yoke of oxen and I am on my way to try them out. Please accept my apologies." The next said, "I have just got married and for that I cannot come." When the servant came back, he reported this to his master. The master of the house was angry and said to him, "Go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town and bring me in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame." The servant said, "Sir, your orders have been carried out, and there is still room." The master said, "Go out onto the highways then and along the hedgerows and make them come in. I want my house to be full. I tell you, not one of those who were invited shall taste my banquet." Now, there is judgment. The obvious interpretation of the parable is, of course, that the kingdom of heaven is at hand and that those who are ready for it will be taken into it and those who are not will be left out. But the parable also includes a second moral, namely, that those who do enter, those who are ready, are hardly among the elect, much less the select. It is a rather abrupt way of saying that the kingdom of God, the divine, is present immediately. But the only ones who are going to know it are those who by any social or religious standards would be outcasts. Not the upright and the righteous by their own standards, but the poor, the crippled, the blind, the lame, the street people, and the homeless. And I would argue, the poor in spirit. All those who mourn, all those who labor and are heavy laden, all those who are rejected and cast out, all those who are condemned and accused by religion, all those who have doubted, all those who, heavy or light of heart, have had to change their minds. Is there a place for such people? A little colony of heaven somewhere? Is there a place where they will be accepted, comforted, and forgiven? Is not this such a place? Well, my friends, if it isn't, it ought to be. In very truth, I believe there is no excuse for such a place as this, a place that calls itself a church, unless that is what it is. It doesn't matter what the circumstance. A church is not a church unless its focus is acceptance, comfort, and forgiveness. All of us do indeed live in 2 worlds, one of things as they are, and other of things as they ought to be. But loving them both and then treating one another and all who come into our care with compassion, to laugh and cry together, loving, deeply caring, that is our true calling in this life. O ye with elastic hearts and pincushion souls, remember, as it is written, ye have passed from death unto life because we loved each other. May it be so. And I do love you. you're visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with All Souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving, so please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
Love BB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256, or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed
and be a blessing.